any further ado, our esteemed group of speakers. As I mentioned earlier, these are some of our top winners from our Marketer of the Year awards gala that we had back in May. I want to introduce Shelley Schlueter from Nokia, Stephanie Chavez from the Trade Group, Blair Crum from TruePoint Communications, Stephanie Wick from Fleishman Hillard, and Christie Gibson from Buckner International. Can we give them all a big round of applause? Thank you guys for being here. Now, the biggest question that they asked me before we were getting started was, so what order are we speaking? And I had to be honest with them and say, I don't remember what order I put you in. So it's going to be this really great surprise each time we click the clicker to see who's up next. So our first winner, Christie Gibson. So Christie's going to tell you a little bit about her program and her company and her involvement with Marketer of the Year. And then we will let each person get up and tell you their great success story. And I think what we'll do is we'll hold all questions till they've all gotten a chance to talk. And then we'll have an open Q&A session for all 5 of our speakers. Sound good? All right, it's all yours.
Well, thanks so much for letting me come talk about Buckner International. It's definitely something I could talk about for a long time, but I'll keep it confined there. I'm going to advance here. This is our logo. If you've not heard of Buckner International, allow me just to tell you a little bit about us so everything else related to our project and our awards that we won will make sense. Fun fact about Buckner International, if you like trivia or you go out and do that with friends, if you are ever on the road and you see a Dallas police car, you'll notice on the side that they say they've been serving Dallas since 1881. Well, we've got them beat because we were founded in 1879. We are the oldest children's charity in Dallas. So it's kind of fun to say we've been around longer than the Dallas Police Department. This is our founder, and he kind of proves the theory that fashion comes back around because back in the 1870s, this is, I think, the hairstyle for most men that is rocking around everywhere. So that is R.C. Buckner. Again, some more facts that you might know. He actually helped start the Baylor health system that's around, that's known, I think, as Baylor Scott White today. He also founded the Dallas Humane Society. There's also a Buckner Boulevard in Dallas, which our original land is over in that general area. We've been in continuous operations for 140 years. Our mission has not changed, and that's serving vulnerable children. We feel really excited about that. Also, in that amount of time, we are only on our 5th CEO. So Buckner is doing something right from a leadership perspective and to be able to continue serving vulnerable kids. Now, of course, that looks different. In 140 years, we've had to evolve and change the way that we do that. R.C. Buckner started Buckner Orphans Home, which was really due to the need following the Civil War, where a lot of kids were orphaned. Now, sometimes when you know about the orphan crisis, that may not mean that an orphan has lost both parents. It just means that maybe the parents aren't able to take care of them, or maybe they have lost one parent. Regardless of that situation, Buckner Orphans Home was started. Today, we don't have an orphans home. Excuse me. Orphanages phased out of the United States back in the 80s. So today we do that through a number of things like foster care and adoption and some of other programs, but one specifically that I'm going to talk about today, which is our Buckner Family Hope Center program. So this is our communications department. Obviously, I'm in that department. And from a marketing perspective, we're a team of 3. We push a lot of volume through our department, and we serve the 11 different cities in Texas that we have different programs throughout. We're also in 6 different international countries. I come from for-profit marketing, where I spent the bulk of my career, about 14 years, and I'm fairly new in nonprofit. But I'll just tell you that the hardest working people I've ever worked with in my career, the most creative and the most just passionate about what we do is in nonprofit, and I wouldn't change it for the world. So hardworking people there. Let me get on to our project and what led us to earn the Nonprofit Marketer of the Year and then overall Marketer of the Year. The Bachman community, that is a part of Dallas. If you've ever flown out of Love Field on a Southwest flight, chances are you have flown over this community. But what a lot of you might not know is within this radius, there's 4,000 kids in this general area, and 96% of the kids in that area are economically disadvantaged. So we have a Buckner Family Hope Center model that we have in Texas locations and internationally. As I said, we started Buckner Orphans Home in 1879. But after a while, we have to say, what can we do to not just react to the situations of where kids can't live with their biological parents? What can we do to prevent that from ever happening? Because no kid ever dreams of, living in a foster care environment or being adopted by someone that's not a biological relative. So therefore, our Hope Center model was born. And the whole concept there is really just to strengthen families, to keep mom and dad together, to make them more economically better off, more stable emotionally, just so those kids can grow up in strong families. Really, the vision is just stronger families equals stronger communities. A little bit more about the Bachman community. The teen pregnancy rate there is 3 times the national average. CPS removal is more there than any other area. 70% of those residents speak Spanish, and only 57% have a high school education. So the Bachman area, again, there's lots of areas in Dallas and Texas where we could just put up a Family Hope Center. And as you can imagine, being a nonprofit, we require funds to do that because we're not a for-profit organization. So we had a whole campaign called Shining Hope Dallas to help us earn that money to build that center to help this area. And I've got a video to show you a little bit more about that. As far as words of wisdom, again, when we were at the awards show, we were not at all expecting to win Nonprofit Marketer of the Year and then even Marketer of the Year. We were pretty humbled and overwhelmed with that happening because really all we did was tell a story. And so if I can impart any wisdom to you, it's tell a story. That may be hard if you're selling a product or a service that's not super sexy. We impact lives, that's what we're selling. It's not a product or service. But the way that we were successful and achieved our goal is because we made people cry ugly mascara tears and we kicked them in the feels. And that's my advice to you is find content that's going to do that.
Some children wonder what they're getting for their birthday. Others worry about if they'll be invited to a friend's birthday party. Amanda Martinez worried about where she'd live. Her father lost his job, leaving her parents scrambling for ways to provide for their 5 children in the Bachman Lake area of Dallas. They were on the verge of becoming homeless.
I felt scared because living on the streets is kind of dangerous.
Her fear is valid given what she sees every day. The child removal rate in her neighborhood is twice the average for the rest of Dallas County. Drugs and gang activity are common.
Unfortunately, we have seen in this neighborhood young girls prostituting themselves. And it's sad because sometimes kids witness this and they see is that okay? My concern for Amanda is that she loses herself and gets sucked in with the life that this neighborhood is allowing them to see.
Buckner Family Hope Center, it is interested in breaking generational and circumstantial poverty. And the way we do it, we start with the family, with mom and dad, how they model and how they deal with conflict, how they see themselves.
Buckner has changed my life because when my mom went to the classes of parents, before she went there, she didn't have patience with us, but then she started to realize that the classes helped her and everything, so now she has more patience, she gives us hugs, and she loves us more.
All we're doing is helping families reconnect with God, reconnect with themselves, reconnect with their children. and that breaks poverty in itself.
With Buckner's help, Amanda's parents created a business plan and began making piñatas. After her father got a full-time job, the piñata sales provided crucial supplemental income to stabilize the family financially. Amanda works alongside her mother and father. It's her way of helping the family, but it also gives them a chance to bond. Seeing her parents succeed has encouraged Amanda. She sees possibilities for her own life.
My dreams of my future is like going to college, graduating with a bachelor's degree of teaching, and that I will be like an example to my other brothers to not give up on life.
So I hope you're crying. That was a video that we showed when we presented to the Crystal Charity Ball. If you're not familiar with the Crystal Charity Ball, it's been around, I believe, since 1952, but it is an organization that basically awards funds to groups that are for children's charitable causes. They have a very rigid and very regimented process for how you submit. You can't just send them an email and say, give us some money, we're doing this worthy stuff. It was a very arduous process. And so the marketing team prepared the content that was delivered to win this award to help build our Buckner Family Hope Center at Bachman Lake. And we obviously provided a video to share Amanda's story. There's a ton of other stories besides just hers. So from the marketing perspective, we were marketing to this group to give us money and telling Amanda's story. Again, that's just one of many that we have at Buckner. Fortunate to work for a nonprofit where we have no shortage of stories. But Shining Hope Dallas was our campaign, and the Crystal Charity Ball, we went to them and said, please give us money so we can build this children's wing to help people like Amanda and her family. And we were awarded $1.2 million in order to do that. And it was a process, but we're very excited about that. And actually last week we had a beam ceremony because we had the first beam. Even though we don't have our facility yet, we're servicing people right now out of an organization. So again, I'm not going into tremendous detail about what all was involved, but have a good story, make people feel. I'm taking a neuromarketing class right now that's changed the way I look at just marketing in general because it's getting into brain science and emotions. So pull on those emotions, make people see the need. Even if you don't live near Bachman Lake, it's 12 miles from where our office is. But if Dallas is stronger, then that's good for all of us. That's good for people that might come work in your businesses who may come out of those situations. So keep doing what you're doing and just tell awesome stories. Thank you so much.
Our next random winner, Blair.
Hi everyone, my name is Blair Crumey and I'm an account supervisor at TruePoint Communications, and my role is overseeing the consumer PR team at our agency. And so one of the projects that I'm going to speak to specifically today is Boardroom Salon for Men in the retail marketing category. And this is a regional brand. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Boardroom Salon for Men. They're actually based here in South Lake, have about 14 locations in the DFW area, and overall, about a footprint of almost 40 throughout Georgia, Oklahoma, Arizona, Texas, and Tennessee. So we wanted to really build a regional multi-unit brand with a presence nationally, which, as you know, can be pretty challenging when they don't have that national footprint. So that was one of our main marketing challenges. But the unique thing that we had here was that Boardroom was really the first in its category. So it's been around for about 15 years, and the CEO actually broke into this industry when reading an airline magazine on the airplane, and there was an article about men's grooming, and he said, you know what, I actually see a lot of potential and demand for this industry, and there's nothing right now that exists like Boardroom. That's an upscale experience, kind of the country clubs of grooming salons. There's maybe sports clubs for men, but nothing that's going to give them this exclusive experience like Boardroom. So Boardroom was founded in 2004, and that really gave them the leg up because while other brands were emerging as competitors in other areas, they're the leader, they're the original, and that gives them something special. And they also have a different model than a lot of other salons. So they're not franchised, they're privately owned and operated in a way that's really different from others. So we wanted to establish this leadership and keep that edge for Boardroom as it continues to grow, which it's continuing to do. So some of the actions taken here to establish this was, who are our target media? A lot of the importance here is not just going with seasonal media outreach with any outlets, but who is our reader actually reading? So these are men who maybe golf at the country club every Saturday. They're executives. What are they reading, and what are their wives reading too? Because we know that's important as well. So we wanted to go after those national and regional publications like A Modern Luxury, for example. That's a really good fit for our Boardroom customer. And we wanted to do this with evergreen, ongoing story angles and outreach, so making sure to hit hard those Father's Day, those gift guide stories, and then also those unexpected angles like Boss's Day. What are you getting your executive boss for Boss's Day? So always making sure to look in the holes and see, what are we missing? What are some of the other holidays that we should consider pitching aside from the obvious? And then, of course, positioning Boardroom as an expert source. We have a great advantage of having some really good stylists on board that we can use as spokespeople and pick their brains and get some really unique tips. And always being able to offer your brand as an expert source gives you a great advantage with media. And then business. So positioning Bruce, the founder and CEO, as a top entrepreneur with an incredible growth story is something we wanted to make sure to go after. So not just hitting consumer media with the obvious stories about men's grooming, but what can we tell about Bruce's story, really founding the men's salon industry, the way that he's also created Brighton Barber Institute. So not only does he have these salons, but he's founded a program of training. So really premium training, and also benefits for employees with corporate growth opportunities outside of the salon if that's something they want. Lots of unique benefits and growth opportunities there. So lots of unique things that we could hit on with our business media as well. And award opportunities to elevate brand positioning. So this was something that is a great way to get exposure for your brand on the corporate side. Bruce has an amazing story to tell, and so how could we find areas for him to be awarded and speak at, both locally and nationally, to really share his expertise there on that side of his business model. A big part of what we've done with Boardroom as well has been with their new salon openings. So they announced last year some expansion in Phoenix with a lot of new locations over the next 3 to 5 years, and how many they want to reach and get to, and across the country as well. And so new store openings is something that's a big focus of our team. So not only is it important to get into those markets and get the right media and influencers there to try Boardroom, but we've really tried to focus in on how we're positioning them at their openings. So we don't just want to invite media out and give them a free service, but we want to make sure that everything we're doing is matching the branding and really aligning with who they are. And so, this is figuring out in each market who makes sense to invite to these events. So, we'll do unique things like have a mayor to get the first shave ceremony, or maybe if it's a market where there's a big college or university, inviting their sports coach out to get the first haircut. So doing things that are unique to their brand and really speaking to who they are is something we've tried to align with in every plan and activation that we do for Boardroom. And also making sure that we have like-minded brands. I think that's the most important thing when you're trying to really grow a brand, is who's alongside them. And those things have to match the brand identity that you want to grow to. So maybe it's top restaurants, and we've invited Capital Grille, for example, out to some of our new restaurant openings to give guests that premium feel in everything that we're offering. And again, just highlighting on that entrepreneurial and growth story, I think you'll always find the most success when you figure out what the brand story is and what sets them apart. And with Boardroom, there are a lot of these components opposed to competitors that we were able to share, identifying them as the top luxury salon. And that's what's continued to help us lead the competition. And we pulled some of our local segments below where we've been able to offer some unique seasonal tips. We do these throughout the year. We even, for example, did a segment on red carpet looks for men. So always trying to stay aligned with what's going on in pop culture too is important. So just an overview of some of the areas that we've seen success in 2018. We received about 160 million impressions through local and national media last year. Some of the highlights, I think, were we got a great Men's Journal story that you can see there below as an example of the expert source I was talking about earlier as a way to position Boardroom on little fun facts that people might always wonder, like why does your barber actually put a hot towel on your face before you get a shave, and what are the benefits of that? And I think the importance here is regularly asking the experts those questions. So there's a lot of cosmetologists there that we make it a priority to speak to regularly and learn from them too, and use that to our advantage to be able to position them as an expert. And also, I really love what we did with Fast Company too, because this was a way that it actually wasn't even a story about men's grooming at all or that industry. It was, they were doing an executive profile about what are top executives buying right now. And so we saw that as an opportunity to position Bruce. He just talked about a whiskey that he loved at the moment. And so it was a way to look outside of the box for those opportunities and see, what are these executives doing and where are they being featured and how can we get our executive in that article too for some of the business focuses. So those are some of our top editorial placements, and then we also put a big emphasis on awards. So we were able to secure 7 opportunities for Boardroom last year to really elevate the brand and take it to the next level and make sure people were thinking about them from the business perspective as well. So some of those were Inc. 5000, America's Top Entrepreneurs, some awards with Fort Worth Business Press, Fort Worth Inc., Modern Luxury, and more that really continued our goals here with Boardroom. So that's it. Thank you.
I just thought the hot towel felt good. Didn't know it had a real reason, right? Next up for bid, Shelley.
Hi there. So when we talk about Nokia, most people think, surprise, of phones. Nokia for a long time has been doing far more than phones. And these 2 campaigns that we're running come out of 2 different divisions within our marketing organization that will show some of what we actually target. So we did 2 different submissions to the AMA for this, and the first submission on the left is to the traditional audience that we cater to. Communication service providers, your Verizons, your AT&Ts, your Spectrum, anybody that's providing you services to your phone, to your home, to your business. And it's all the networking equipment that's behind the scenes that we sell and have for many, many years, more than 150 to be exact. So that campaign on the left, we submitted to the social media category. It's all about digital time. I'll explain a little more about that as we go along. And we submitted the first in a series of videos that we created, the Intelligent Care Digital Moment. And the target of this campaign was to bring on new personas to the digital time campaign that we were running. As a company, about a little more than a year ago, we reorganized ourselves to be very persona-centric, to really focus on getting our personas locked down and making sure we're targeting those that we had in mind, not just the traditional ones we'd been targeting. And this other division on the right, that's our enterprise division, the Go Allware campaign, and that is the integrated B2B category that we submitted for. They're all about marketing us into new spaces, not just the communication service providers we've traditionally looked at, but new segments, new verticals, and building reputation over there where Nokia is not known at all. Believe it or not, communication service providers know us really well. So let's go through these 2 just a little bit to see what we've done. When we looked at the digital time campaign, We come from an engineering background as a company. Lots of engineers in the company, myself included. That means we're really good at talking to CTOs, COOs, having those technical conversations. But is that really where you're going to get all your sales? Well, eventually you need to not only change the conversation, but change the audience and start talking to people more on the business side of the house. I can talk tech all day long, but when you start talking dollars and cents to your CIOs, your CMOs, your heads of care, that really does make a difference. With this campaign, we wanted to target the CIO. It was our first step outside the technical realm, and the CIO has more of a technical side, but as well wears a very strong business hat. So we felt like that was a good bridge toward that business conversation for us. Now, the Digital Time campaign was all about the way we live our lives today. In every moment of your day, you are probably connected to something. Your phone, your desk with your computer at work, your TV at home, internet somehow. And service providers can impact those digital moments at any given time and make them better, make you more productive. That's what Digital Time is all about. In this campaign, we rolled out the Intelligent Care Digital Moment was the first video piece that we did. We created a video that freezes in time that moment that we impact and then shows how we can make it better for the family that we were showing in the video. We created the video and hosted it on its own web page that would continue the customer journey beyond just the video and show what was behind it. We created stills, carousels, video snips, and video banner ads, and targeted social media category, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Google search, all the usual suspects. And we did a combination of paid and organic, as well as doing these video banner ads in watering holes where we thought CIOs live. We were starting our research in this area, so the main goal of this category, of this campaign, was to get the right eyeballs on what we were doing. Now, for those of you who may watch So You Think You Can Dance, this technique may look really familiar. Freeze in time and spin around. Well, we were doing this last year. And in the different turns of that frozen digital moment, we're showing all the ways that we can help the family that we were targeting in this film. So for a CIO, seeing the cohesive way we can blend all the different aspects is really important because that's his purview, bringing everything together and making sure it all works cohesively. Now, the way we approached the campaign itself, we did the paid versus organic, and we found for us that LinkedIn gave us the best audience targeting. We really got some solid clicks from CIOs. And the video ads that we put on the different watering holes, the Forbes, the BBC, ZDNet, that really made a difference for us. Google search that we paid for in the beginning was kind of hit and miss because the persona game for this particular persona was a little new for us. So we had a lot of SEO tweaking to do. And eventually it did provide us some really good results, but it was quite a learning curve. Now, of course, individual words are important for SEO, but the way you put them together is just as important. And we found that calls to action, questions to engage the consumer of our materials made a big difference rather than just put a blanket statement out there. And of course, which channels made a difference for us? Well, LinkedIn, just hands down, was the best performer for us overall, because that's where our audience seems to like living. Our view-through rates there were significantly higher than they were on Facebook or Twitter, either one. So the results we got, obviously we set some targets that could have been a little higher. The percentages you see on the left show how we performed against the targets we set for ourselves, and we are really pleased with the results that we got. 650,000 views on social worked quite well for us. And, this is a continuous learning exercise for us. continuing the journey with personas, adding more personas into the fold, and figuring out how to make sure we're getting the right people engaged, as well as creating leads for us, because the whole point of this is to make sure we're able to sell, right? So now let's talk about the other campaign, Go Allware. Anytime you're targeting a new market, you've got a lot of work to do. And as far as the verticals that we were targeting, manufacturing, transportation, energy, all of these are new for us. The reason we're targeting this area is to target Industry 4.0. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with this term, it's talking about the fourth industrial revolution that's coming, and it's the intersection of automation, IoT, cognitive analytics. Take all the newest technologies, put them in a blender, and ta-da, you have enablers for Industry 4.0. And that's what we're targeting to help. So we created a reputation program, and we wanted to make sure the tone and emotion that we put behind it really got our people engaged, the consumers we were targeting in that aspect. So we wanted something that showed the wonder and excitement that the customer could get out of what Industry 4.0 will enable them to do. It's going to change the way manufacturing and energy are consumed and leveraged. We also wanted to show how passionate we are about solving problems for customers in those spaces, and highlight the fact that we are leaders in connectivity and technology, but we're modest too. It's not like we invented Industry 4.0. We're just here to accelerate our customers in getting there and make sure they're taking advantage of this trend. Now, the way we had to do this was making sure that we connect with all these different segments. And that's a lot of different industries to connect to. So we had to have something that was meaningful for all of them. But building a reputation takes more than just, hey, I'm great. You have to have something behind it. So the underpinning we have to it is our architecture and our approach. And that gave them something to really see how we can enable for each and every segment, getting them to Industry 4.0. Now, the technology behind it, we leveraged our Nokia Bell Labs heritage. For those of you who aren't familiar, lots of Nobel Prizes, lots of very smart people. We love them dearly. And they have created the Future X network that supports everything we're talking about. This Future X network vision is something we can sell not only to communication service providers, they're very excited about it, but we can also show how it's relevant to these enterprise segments that we're going after. It gives them the value platforms they're looking for. It gives them the multi-cloud approach. I'll find a few more buzzwords I can throw in here. High-speed networking. All of these things we can enable for the enterprise segments that we're looking at, and we can show them how it's relevant to them. And we wanted to make sure that kept coming up and it was relatable in that space. So the way we had to do this, well, it kind of was a bit scattershot because we're not so familiar with these consumers in that space. So we had to make sure we had something for everybody, and we hit as many different channels as we could. So for digital, we had ebooks, we have websites, we have brochures. We had to make sure we had plenty of social media that was very specific to each of the targets. We had airport advertising. If you went through DFW during the Christmas period, you would have seen advertising for Go Allware. And for anybody who attends some of the trade shows that we attend, like Mobile World Congress, Go Allware was all over the Barcelona airport. Programmatic advertising and PPC we were doing in 33 countries, hitting the entire C-suite for every different vertical we were going after. And then for us, at least, events are a really big demand generator. So we had to make sure we had plenty of branding to go through those events. Now, the results we got out of this is not a sprint, but a marathon. And we're really excited about how many followers we got and how much visibility we have. But this one is an ongoing process too. As a company, we're working to really broaden our horizons and make sure that we are able to have a big impact for our sales teams, help them to sell, help get visibility to the brand in new places and visibility to new players. And that's all our goals right there. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Wick. I am the Managing Supervisor at Fleishman, Hillard, Dallas. I've been with the agency for just over 4 years now, and I serve as a secondary account manager on Texas Oncology. We actually have 2 individuals from the Texas Oncology marketing marketing department here with us today, Allison and Lisa. So this campaign that I'm going to talk to you about is specifically called Cancer in the Workplace. And I would say that the advances in cancer care today have led to more people than ever being able to work during cancer treatment. Texas Oncology specifically has sites all across the state, and it's really leading edge clinical care that's provided in a community-based setting. So those 2 things really allow Texas Oncology patients to be able to work during treatment if they're physically capable and feeling up to it. So we really saw a need here to talk about that and to address how to go about doing that. It is not without its challenges to be able to work when you're going through such a terrible time in your life. And we know that that's the case, and we wanted to be able to provide resources that would help those patients traverse that really tricky time. But not just the patients, also the coworkers of patients and the employers of patients, because cancer in general can be a tricky topic to talk about just in general. And in the workplace, it can be even harder for some folks, and we wanted to provide resources that would really address and guide those conversations to make it just a little bit easier for our patients. And we did that by creating 7 different pieces of content that lived on the website, and some of them were even physical things that patients could take to their employers to start that tricky conversation. In addition to those resources, we of course did media outreach, and we mined for patient stories that really put a face to this campaign and humanized cancer and helped kind of pull at those heartstrings that you had talked about earlier. And I think that we're in a great position in our work with Texas Oncology where we can do that. We have no shortage of stories that are going to make you cry. I do it on an almost weekly basis, it feels like, because we're talking to these patients that are in the trenches and they're the real heroes here. So it's an honor for us to be able to talk about their stories and try to inspire the patients that are going through this challenging time and provide a little bit of hope. With all of our campaigns, we use those patient stories in a multitude of ways in our media outreach, in our website content, and our social channels to really amplify those messages. So I would call the website resources that you see here was really like the meat of our campaign. We created 7 different pieces of content that 3 of which were specific to patients that are going through cancer treatment, and then 4 that were for coworkers and employers. So that 3rd bullet you see under patients right there was a literal questionnaire that the patient could fill out and hand to their employer to start that tricky conversation and to talk about the different things that they needed to do to modify either their work schedule or their physical environment at the office, whether it was being closer to the printer or having a better parking spot so they didn't have to walk because they're physically tired. So those kinds of things were valuable and meaningful to the patients. For coworkers and employers, I think we can say that we've all been touched by cancer in some form or fashion. It is, whether personally or you have a loved one or a coworker, it's a tricky topic, and we know that, and we recognize that some people just don't know what to say or what not to say. So we actually ended up talking to 2 different social workers at Texas Oncology who, Texas Oncology, you probably don't think of social workers when you think of cancer care. You think of the oncologist, the nurse, but social workers on site at Texas Oncology do exactly this work. They help the patients go through these tricky times and figure out how to go about this and work during cancer treatment. So we were able to leverage those subject matter experts to really guide this content and make sure that it was fact-based and based on their experiences and the questions that they get from patients to address those concerns and really help not only the patients, but the coworkers of patients and the employers to guide those conversations. So stories of inspiration is what we reference as true patient stories that are meant to inspire. So again, like I had mentioned, these patient stories are at the heart of all of our campaigns because you can't help but just relate to it when you have a face and a voice that aligns with the topic at hand here. And we're in a really amazing position where we have created this process working with Texas Oncology where we can get direct access to the physicians, to the patients, to be able to mine for these patient stories. And we have created kind of a regional process where we have market managers who are in charge of different geographic locations because Texas Oncology has 225 sites, is that the latest number? Across the state. So there's a lot of markets that we can address, and we get those great patient stories and we use them in a multitude of ways. So for this specific campaign, we were able to identify 4 incredibly strong, really inspiring stories. They all happen to be women, but they really ranged. There was the woman, Shirley, here on the right-hand side. She owns her own family business, and it's a food truck. And, that's demanding work. So we were able to tell her story and how she went about approaching that. There was another woman who was a VP in a high-powered position. She had to take a step back. It wasn't possible for her to go about working during cancer, but her story was more about how she went back to work after she beat it. So being able to tell those stories really just, in our mind, gives patients that are currently going through it and are in the trenches hope that other people have gone through it, they've made it out, and they can too. So media coverage for this, our approach here was to, of course, since this was a very resource-focused campaign, we included all 7 of those pieces of content in our media pitch and inserted those stories of inspiration, those true patient stories, into the pitches in the markets where those patients reside. That's our approach in general for Texas Oncology, using those geographic locations to pitch the stories where Texas Oncology has a presence, because our goal is always to increase awareness of the local amazing care that patients can get, and they don't have to drive hundreds of miles to Houston or anywhere. They can get that leading edge care at Texas Oncology, close to their homes, their support system, and their job. I would just add a little color commentary here. The DCEO healthcare story you see in the middle there, it has a little special place in my heart. It made me smile ear to ear when I read it because it included 6 of the 7 resources that we shared in our pitch. What I think as PR professionals we can all agree it was like PR gold, and very helpful. It included the patient quotes too, so that was exciting for us. Social media is a way for us to really just amplify the messages and share the resources that we had created on a different channel. And this resulted in over 300,000 social media impressions alone for this campaign. We leveraged the usual suspects, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. With Facebook specifically, we have a very active community that's including survivors, caregivers, patients that are going through it right now. And for this campaign, the content for it, we got over 600 comments just either saying their own personal story of how they went through cancer treatment and still worked, or how they weren't able to. And it just created this really cool opportunity for survivors, current patients, to talk about those experiences in a really meaningful way. And there was just a lot of gratitude for these resources that folks hadn't really seen before, because that was the whole reason we did this campaign. Was we saw that this was an obvious need. You know, everybody hears of cancer, but it hadn't been covered in the media or on social channels, so we wanted to address that in a really meaningful way. And the response was incredibly positive, and this just kind of gives you a taste of some of the highlights of people thanking us for this content and how valuable it was. You know, on the bottom right-hand corner, she's sharing her story of being a teacher and how her employers were so kind to her, and modified her work schedule in different ways to make it better for her. So it was an inspiring campaign, and one that we felt was just really needed. And I'll leave you with this statistic that might be a little scary, but 1.7 million people in America were diagnosed with cancer this year alone. And bringing that down to Texas specifically, 124,000 people will be diagnosed this year. So those people are going to have to work. Maybe not all of them, but some financially can't afford to not work. So this campaign gave us an opportunity to talk about that and guide those conversations in a really meaningful way. That's it.
All right, last but not least. So I am Stephanie Chavez. I'm the Director of Marketing at the Trade Group and Abacus 3, which I will go into here in a minute. We won the award for event marketing for our esports event, OP Live Dallas, which was super exciting. So there's a lot going on here, I realize, but the Trade Group is where I work. We are exhibit house, essentially. We've been around for 33 years, started doing exhibits kind of as we've grown, have moved into doing gaming events, a lot in the gaming space. Facebook Gaming is one of our clients, Blizzard, Activision, if anyone plays games. And we partnered with a company called LST, that's a sports marketing firm, and they work with big brands on sponsorships. So we came together, these two entities, to create Abacus 3, and Abacus 3 is all about esports, designing building stages, venues, putting on esports events, etc. So OP Live was kind of Abacus 3's launch party. So the Trade Group has done the back end of putting together esports events all this time, in the design, the build, the fabrication, and production, but we do it for other people. We've never done it for ourselves. And to do the front end, the marketing, getting the sponsors, getting the volunteers, my goodness, it is a job, but it worked out. So the first thing we did was try to find a venue. So there was a lot of pros and cons. You know, bandwidth obviously is a concern, internet speeds, et cetera. But we ended up working with the Irving Convention Center, and we had 30,000 square feet of space to put this on. It was a 2-day event in September of last year. And the first day, Saturday, we invited 16 college esports teams to come down, and the furthest came from Mississippi, so we had buses of all of these collegiate esports teams come down and participate in an Overwatch tournament. And Overwatch is a game that these kids play and have teams. And UNT actually won in Denton, so that was kind of exciting that our local won. But we had 144 players actually participate. The second day, we had a Fortnite Pro-Am. I'm sure parents, maybe some of you actually play Fortnite yourself. We had a Fortnite Pro-Am where we had a bank, you see all those 100 computers over there, where kids could come in, parents, people of all ages could play some actual pro players that we had up on stage. And that was really exciting. We had several pro teams come, Complexity, Counterlogic Gaming, Team Envy, and the Dallas Fuel, which is a local team. And we also had a dream team of streamers, professional streamers that stream playing games online. And funny thing is, actually 6 attendees actually beat some of the pro players. That was kind of exciting. We also had a hackathon, and a hackathon was where we had 3 teams from colleges come, and they were tasked with creating some sort during the 2-day period of program that would enhance the gameplay experience. And so the winners actually created an API that worked with game servers to pull player stats and compiled the statistics and then embedded the messages and outputs in Discord, which is a messaging platform for the gaming community. The goal was really to bring the players themselves, mostly kids and students, together with parents,
together with academia. We worked with SMU Guildhall, which is the #1 video game development school in the world, and industry. We had Epic Games there, who is the creator of Fortnite. So everyone, we wanted to bring them together for one huge holistic esports game playing bonanza. And so part of that, we had powered talks, which in between the tournaments, we would have people give 10-minute little speeches. We had people from GameStop. We had the guy who heads up Twitch Student, which is an education program. His name was Garvey. We had 2 gentlemen from Epic Games come out and speak as well. So it was really cool. Jeff Moore, the president and COO of Envy Gaming, which is also the Dallas Fuel, one of our pro teams here, he spoke as well. Another important thing that we didn't want to leave out were parents, because I'm sure if any of you are parents, you're like, my kid sits in his room all day long playing video games. He's wasting his life away. So any of you guys have kids that you wonder that? So basically, we wanted to educate and say, look, yes, they're playing games, but there is actually opportunity. There's value that they're bringing here. They're making friends online. They are creating skills that they can actually get education and degrees in. They can get careers in esports. It's not just being a pro player. It could be doing the media, creating the content, designing the games, programming the games. There's so much that you can do in that space. And so we were trying to educate parents to the opportunities as well. We also had an event app, which you'll see a little bit more here in a minute. We had exhibitors that came, so we had gaming, and then we also had kind of a trade show component to it. SMU Guildhall, like I said, was a huge partner of ours, and so we had, that was the speaking area where they gave in-depth presentations about their software. And to the right of that, there was a gaming area where, because from Guildhall, that's what they do as part of their master's program, is build video games. They had about 20 different samples of the video games that their students built, and people were just, able to free play that and showcase that. We also had an art gallery where we had submissions for art contests, and the winners were posted up here in the art gallery. We had streamers and cosplayers. For those of you who don't know, cosplayers are where people get really excited about a character and they dress up as that character. And so that was some of that there. And then we had streamers. And if any of you are familiar with Twitch, basically you watch people playing games on Twitch and you stream. They stream it. And so there are some that are really popular. They're kind of famous in the gaming world. And so those were the streamers, and they had these little pods that we made for them, and they were streaming, and the attendees got to watch, and that was really cool. Again, we had the free play area. When we weren't having the Fortnite Pro-Am, those 100 computers were open for people to play. We also had a meet and greet area where the pro players and famous streamers came, had autographs, pictures, meeting with their fans. So the metrics, the challenge for this is that it was a first-time event. Like I said, we had done the back end of things before, but not ever the front end. So this was kind of new territory in that respect for us. Also, marketing to this demographic is quite difficult because, the young male teenagers, they stream everything, they watch everything on Netflix, music, so it's hard to advertise to them. So that was a challenge, but we tried different things and were able to figure that out. So one thing that's really cool is you'll notice the minutes watched in that second column, 128,000 minutes watched over that one weekend on Twitch. So that was really exciting. And then the different audience reach impressions, 18 million impressions, 80,000 engagements. So we were really pleased for the first time event for those metrics. On social, we had nothing but praise, and that was really exciting because the worst thing you can do is have an event and they destroy you because something went wrong, right? All over social, so that was a little nerve-wracking. But thank goodness everything went well, and nothing but positive things, which you couldn't ask for better. And so here is a quick highlight recap of the event.
One of the great things about esports is how diverse the community is. It's professional gamers, artists, all the way to kids at home. And we wanted to reflect that culture through OP Live. We wanted to make sure that there was something to do for everybody. The level of school spirit we had during the collegiate tournament was really incredible, and the engagement we had on Twitch was astounding. It was a rare opportunity for fans to be able to play against local professional esports teams. We had specialized streaming pods where attendees could see some of their favorite personalities up close. We also had a number of cosplayers come out, and fans really had a great time interacting with them, as well as members from the Dallas Fuel. It was really important for us that first-time attendees to a gaming event would still have fun, experience everything there was, as well as have an understanding of what was going on and why it was there. The way we accomplished this was through the OP Live Odyssey, an interactive journey through the mobile event app. As they made their way through the event, attendees would find QR codes. Each would unlock a certain achievement in their OP Live app. It really motivated them to see and do everything that there was at the event.
Community education is something that we feel strongly about, and we were proud to be able to share powerful insights from some incredibly knowledgeable and passionate speakers with our attendees. Overall, OP Live brought students, parents, academia, industry, and pro teams all together in one holistic environment in a way that hasn't been done before.
Definitely looking forward to 2019 and what more we can bring to the community.
All right, that's it.
Thank you all very, very much. We're going to open it up for a few minutes of questions. Before we do, though, if you will, take out your phones and text AMA DFW to 444-222. That will enter you into our door prize drawing. We actually have a few things from our friends at the Dallas Business Journal to give away today. So if you would take just a second and text AMA DFW to 444-222, you'll get a little confirmation question, answer that, and you'll be entered into the drawing. And while you're doing that, let's open up the floor for questions for any of our speakers. Have at it. Tell you what, I'll
You can hear me, panelists? Yeah? Okay. I'm sorry, I don't remember all the names, but the Buckner campaign, was it Christie? Okay. That was really beautiful. And they were all fabulous campaigns, by the way. They were wonderful. Obviously really touching. I was just curious, in the nonprofit space, or particularly for Buckner, how do you go into the next campaign in the next year? Because it's kind of hard to, and I hate to say this, but like one up, from a marketing standpoint, or results, wanting to generate more results. Are the campaigns driven by the next storytelling campaign, or are they always attributed to, like you mentioned, Crystal Charity Ball? Just kind of curious about the planning process in y'all's world, and how do you, that was a wonderful campaign, it could be used for many years. So then do you just wait 5 years and do another? I'm kind of curious about that.
It's on now. I think so.
Is that working? Okay. Great question. I think in that particular case of the Bachman Lake Family Hope Center, we really had to go by their guidelines and design a campaign specifically to that. We really didn't have any wiggle room to go inside or outside or do that how we wanted. Just general marketing, talking about other things that we would do just to earn general funds to support our operation. It depends on, what we're trying to do, because we are in 6 countries and throughout Texas. So, there are no shortage of needs, but if the funding is there, we can just take our models and duplicate it. So it really depends on where we are, what group are we approaching, if it's a fundraising situation. Obviously, we just need that to sustain our ongoing operations. And so if you follow our social media, go to any of our digital properties, we do a ton of events as well. Ongoing every week. And so that's pretty much our model, is to tell the story, but a lot of it is knowing the audience, but we're always trying to reach the audience that doesn't know us. A lot of people still think about us as the Buckner Orphans Home, and obviously that's not us anymore. So probably some rebranding in this area, but with all of the influx of people that are moving into Texas, particularly in the Dallas and Houston areas, telling that story and then telling those community stories, but also educating people about, obviously you want to care about a child that's in a poverty area and others like her, but also helping other people to understand why they should, pick our nonprofit over others. And so it's an education on how they can get involved. So we're not just always trying to reach those people that can give us money. We need individual volunteers. We need volunteer groups that can come in. We have a humanitarian aid center, so we constantly rely on groups and people to come in. We have people come into our Hope Center, so we're constantly looking for ways to convert from, if you're a donor, then maybe now you want to be a volunteer, and God forbid you ever need to be a client who needs one of our services. But we have a lot of people that come in through our programs, maybe a single parent program, that end up volunteering with us and then becoming a donor. So for every campaign we create, we also try to go with the mindset of how can we keep converting them over and over from program to program. One of our challenges as well, since we are based in Dallas, but we operate in those other markets, are letting those other markets know that we were founded in Texas and that we are Buckner International. We're not just Buckner Lubbock or Buckner Amarillo. And so really, to answer your question, it just depends on what the goal is, and then really customizing it from there. But we can take that content and then spread that out many different ways.
Who else has a question?
In regards, actually, now not all of you have to comment, see what inspires you. Have there been any challenges where you just haven't found the right answer? If that makes any sense, like there's this question mark in regards to what's the next step, and we don't know where to go from a digital perspective. Does that make sense?
It does. Play the game. Is this working? Yes, it is. As a company, we were feeling exactly that a little over a year ago when we switched to persona-based marketing and figuring out the path of the person, because it's not necessarily linear, right? Nobody shops in a linear way when it's talking B2B, because you're typically dealing with buyer groups in a lot of cases. So we've had a lot of workshops where we've worked with our sales teams, with outside consultants, and trying to figure out what's the right path or paths for the customer who would be buying from us, and how are we making sure we're not just targeting that customer, but all the customers that are in the buying group, having something for all the influencers as well. Because in some cases, we're not talking directly to the person we want to reach because they tend to stay inside the business. We're talking to their direct reports, we're talking to their peers. So figuring out that path is an ongoing journey for us, at least. And we do a lot of A/B testing to figure out, are we reaching the right people? Is it getting us to the sale? And we've put a lot more tech tools in place in our tech stack to be able to measure all of that and see where are we going from here. So yeah, that's a continuous journey.
Anyone else with a question?
So first of all, congratulations on your awards. So I had the privilege of actually managing this year's Market of the Year Awards program. So I know firsthand what it takes to actually, for these guys to have won their categories. One of the major judging criteria used in evaluating the entries is being able to articulate outcomes and then putting in place metrics to measure the success of the program. So question to anybody on the stage there, how much forethought goes into kind of defining what those kind of desired outcomes and then putting in place the capability to actually measure the outcomes to ensure success of the program?
Hello. So for a lot of our campaigns, the metrics that we use are the earned impressions that we get for media specific, social media impressions in total, but also the sentiment. So I would say it can be subjective sometimes. the responses that we're getting. And I'm sure you remember from the slide that I had up that showed the social commentary. I think that's what we find where we find value, because it is a people-first organization. Texas Oncology puts patients first. So making sure that we are addressing the concerns of the patient first through our campaigns is what we find most valuable, and obviously the metrics are a great, bonus on top of that.
Anyone else with a comment? Go ahead.
Sorry,
Steph.
I was just going to say, everything that we did, because we were trying to reach an elusive demographic, was, we even worked with movie theaters to try to get a hold of the parents and radio stations to get hold of the parents. We were very conscious about where, the audience that we were going after, and making sure that they were in that particular channel and that the message was on target for them. And then, everything was very results driven. So also influencer marketing was really helpful for us. Those streamers and those cosplayers, they actually have tons of followers, many of them. There's some of them millions upon millions, and they were a little too expensive for us to get for our event. But even just those smaller influencers were really key in partnering with us, because we promoted them, they promoted us, and I think that really helped tap into our elusive demographic.
And I can speak to a little bit to impressions. I think it's really important to get specific per campaign or per market. You can't just have one blanket goal to work against, because that's not really being thoughtful about it. So, each year we do set either quarterly or annual objectives on the amount of impressions we want to achieve from an overall evergreen PR standpoint. So to accomplish this as a team, we look into and figure out, what are the top placements we want to get? What do those impressions numbers look like? But then from more of the new store opening perspective, it's very unique to each market. The media landscape is totally different. If you're opening a store in Dallas versus, Corsicana. So it's just, you have to be very thoughtful about what the media landscape looks like in order to set reachable and achievable goals.
And at least from our perspective, we link everything to sales. So are you able to sell? Are you generating leads for the sales team? That's a really big metric for us, and everything funnels into that. Not just marketing impressions, but marketing generated leads, where we're finding it before our sales teams. That's the measure of value that we're aiming for. I think we're still more in the impression side than the generation side, but that's the direction that we're headed for.
Could I get a round of applause for all of our speakers, please?